the Section 8 zip codes with the highest rents are often the worst places to invest in. A lot of people don't talk about that because they just get blinded by the numbers. So you have to think about things in multiple regards. And I'm also going to talk about another factor that's extremely important. The reason why the Section 8 Housing Authority is going to be giving more money is because they're trying to incentivize people to invest in an area that is not that nice. And why they're doing this is because they want to go and spike up the area, right? They want more investors to lean into it. They want more money allocated towards it. They want the area to get gentrified because it improves. If it improves, the property tax improves, and the government makes more money. So it's an investment on there in regards to giving you the higher number. That being said, you also have to factor in the idea and the know-how that the Section 8 Housing Authority is going to lowball based on the number. So, like in Cleveland, Ohio, right? If you invest on the east side, the numbers are going to be a lot higher in regards to the rent. But you're going to be in a position where maybe it takes longer for them to get occupied, or if they do get occupied, they have higher turnout. And there are some little pockets where it's very manageable and it's fine. So you don't want to be blinded by the propaganda people push like, oh, only invest on the west side. Like, no, there's people pockets on the east side that are perfectly fine and good, but you don't want to be blinded by numbers. Like there's zip codes that say you drive one street, north or east, and it'll jump from a four bed renting for 1,500 to 1,900. You may think, oh fuck, like 1,900, I'm gonna get it. But in reality, once the Section 8 Housing Authority lowballs you, you'll be at, say, was it 1,900? Say you'd be at like 1,750. So in reality, only $250 off of that 1,500, which end up probably being 1,400. So you're only like $300 off. But the $300 extra you're making is not really worth the headache that you'll be enduring. With that being said, the prices are going to be lower. But in regards to the type of way that you're buying it, with regards to DSCR loans, all the above, if you see a lower price point home, it may be more appealing, but you may be in a position where the loan type can't even go that low. There are some lenders that can't loan that low on a DSCR loan, right? You might have to buy conventionally. You put it on conventionally, then it's gonna be on your credit report. Some people don't want to do that. It's not that big of a deal. But then you're in a situation where now the loan is not being factored off of debt servicing, it covering its rent. I mean, it's covering its mortgage with the rent. Now it's factored in regards to your situation, and that's something that people may not want to do. One of the biggest things you're going to you have to factor in is going to be vacancy. That's going to be your biggest holding cost, and also your biggest cost just overall, right? In regards to turnout, which is leading to vacancy, is that if you're in a situation where you invest in an area that has higher rent because they're incentivizing people to do that, the reason why they're incentivizing people is because other people don't want to do it. They'd rather go and invest in an area that maybe has lower rent, but it's going to have faster turnaround times. It's going to be in a situation where the amount of capital allocated per deal works out more. With that being said, that vacancy in regards to that payment is going to be eating into your bottom line. And vacancy is completely normal. It's something that you shouldn't panic for, but you should you should account. Because if you buy a property, say for example in the east side of Cleveland, Ohio, and all in is 25,000, but then your vacancy is going to be 6 months, so you do six. Say it's a lower payment, 600 times six. Now you got $3,600 in just mortgage payments. So in reality, your all investments closer to 2,860, and then you're in a situation where you also have to factor in, your utilities, all the above. All that shit is coming out of your pocket. Not to mention the holding costs in regards to getting the property Section 8 rent ready. With that being said, if you invest on like a west side, for example, in the suburbs, you have the possibility to rent the cash if Section 8 is taking too long. Alongside that, that's very why it's so important to go and find the right property management, because the right property management is going to be in a position where they can tell you like, hey, do not invest in X area because of Y reason. Not because hey, this property is not that it's not going to rent, but it's going to lag, or this property will rent, but you're going to get headaches. And in regards to finding those property managers, it's a matter of either one, you work your sphere of influence. When you work your sphere of influence, it's either other investors other realtors lenders. You want to go and vet these property managers to the max because they're going to give you the insider knowledge of people that actually live there, and the database that they have to deal with, right? They also get the market data of the current state, not amount of the past data, because although you look at past data, you make predictions based off algorithms and tendencies for the future. The market data that's in the current moment is always going to be the one to reference, right? Because things change all the fucking time. It could be a market where things rent out in a matter of 30 days for the last 5 years, and then this is the 1 year that it switches to 60, and that's a big difference. And the property managers, the people that are really trenching, are going to know. And the way you're going to know if it's a good property manager is one, they respond to you fast, they treat you well even when you have nothing to offer, or you never mention the intentions of becoming a client. How many doors do they own? I mean, how many doors do they manage? Do they own any doors? Alongside of them owning any doors, are they in a situation where they work with investors out of state? Because some property managers will treat investors that are in state differently than if they're out of state. Someone treats them completely the same, perfectly fine. The reason why you want to know if they own doors is because a property manager that owns doors is going to have the insider knowledge of what it feels like to be an investor, and be able to use that terminology. Like if they say, "Hey, you're holding costs on this property. If you're looking at something, this is going to be X amount." Like I wouldn't even go for it, or factor that in. If that's something that you're still trying to pursue, even after you tell them, "Hey, it doesn't matter." Um, but just because something is going to be in a situation where it has higher numbers in regards to the rent, doesn't mean that it makes the most sense. The biggest misconception people have is the more cash flow, the better. It's better to have predictability, in my opinion, than it is to have cash flow that's there, and then you have a turnout and vacancy, and now you're going to flip it back. But regards to those finding the property managers, you need to understand that the property manager is going to be almost more important than almost anything else. And it may seem very like obvious to some people. Most of the time, it's people saying that's obvious are going to be people that don't own any property, talking out of their neck. With that being said, if I were to advise, if someone was not working with us, it's like go and look for the property manager before you go and find the realtor, lender, or whatever that you're actually going to pursue the property with. With that being said, you need to understand that in this given situation, when you're going investing out of state, the property manager is more volatile. I mean, not volatile, vital than absolutely anything else in this whole situation. Because the property manager will understand who's a good realtor, who's a good lender. Some realtors will go and try to refer you to property managers, but it's typically property managers that they know of, but not that they know personally that they've worked with. In regards to those property managers, they know other investors, which they can connect you with, and then those investors could potentially go and connect you with realtors. And the reason why they'll go and do that is because obviously if you go and close a deal with them, sometimes they're going to go and give a referral fee, so they have an incentive to do it. In regards to the incentive for the realtor or the lender to go and give the property manager, they're not really there, right? There's no real financial incentive for them to go and do that. Unfortunately, most people are motivated by financial incentives. It's not a matter of them personally doing it out of the kindness of their heart. If they do, they give you some half-assed team. Another thing, some property management companies, just because they have a big fucking name or they have a bunch of doors, does not mean that there's a move. If someone has 400 doors under management, kind of a hard one, unless they have a really big crew and they have split crews and all the above, because they're going to be in a predicament where they may be capped at like the relationship building aspect of investing, and being able to be relational with you. That's the word I was like, relational, because it's simply just numbers, and it's not a matter of it being something that's their fault. But when you're trying to scale to 10 doors, 15 doors, 20 doors, you may have to split up property management, because if they can't handle that bandwidth, your property performance is almost as important as the relationship you have with them. And I think if you present it in that way, don't really get upset. But the main thing for you to just understand that property management aspect is probably the most important out of absolutely everything. That's why we give people our property management connects. Alongside that, you can get the most up-to-date numbers in regards to what the low ball is looking like. For example, if a property has a zip code with a rent rate of 1660 for a 4 bed, our property manager either owns or manages a unit on that same street that just got a Section 8 tenant in there, and they offered them 13, which is way too low. It's like, all right, dog, like same properties bedroom count. Alongside that, with it being in the same bedroom count, it's on the same street, has a similar build. We thought it was going to be at 1450 or 1475. Now our numbers are way off, right? So although you're preparing for that conservative, low ball and all the above, you need to be in a situation where you also factor in, the local knowledge alongside, um, the investor knowledge of knowing that they're going to lowball you by 10 to 20%, and you run off of that 80% overall rent rate and see if it makes sense. So, the premise of this video is to understand that property management is going to be the most important part, most volatile. Two, just because it has the highest rent does not mean it's the best, because they're trying to incentivize, the government is trying to incentivize people to invest in an area that is not that desirable. It is not that lucrative for investors, right, in regards to appreciation, all the above. So they're trying to go and get it to be gentrified. And third, the property management is going to be more important than the realtors, the lenders, insurance, all the above. They could connect you with them if they're actually solid and they have other deals flowing. But if you do the inverse, you're probably just going to get some half-ass, maybe commercial property management company that they know, which is really just going to treat you like a number. So you need the balance between numbers in regards to them having multiple units either under their ownership or a good amount managing other people, not too much, but also relationship aspect of them treating you as a human. You know, you could have them on a first name basis, all that shit. So I want you guys to take this away from this video. If you enjoyed this video, let me know. I want to keep making more videos like this, just giving the raw premise of real estate investing from my personal experience. You guys could go and potentially use it to your advantage, or just take it into consideration when you're going and looking at proceeding with real estate investing or other types of investing. Just overall in regards to my philosophy and transferable mindset. So appreciate y'all. Catch you on the next one.